Okay, well listen, good evening, and let's see, I love being live to you right now, and in about 7 minutes we'll be on the air as well. So the show's going to play at 7 o'clock, a little bit after 7. Tonight, I'll give you a little bit of a rundown. I interviewed Fred Kelly Grant today. How many are aware of who he is and what he's doing? Absolutely epic interview. Epic. And it's going to be breaking major stories all around the nation. Because in this story, we confront, and here's the article that goes along with it from Agenda 21 Radio, exclusive from our friend Katie Grimes, and illegal experiments on children. EPA used children in illegal diesel exhaust experiments. This is really against the law, and there's no really about it. And I'll come back to this after our speaker, give you a little tease right now. But Fred Kelly Grant and others, and people that I have talked to directly over the last several weeks, this has been a story that's been coming for a while, have been unraveling this one. That this, in fact, Katie writes, it's reminiscent of Joseph Mengele. And for those of you that are not aware, that following World War II and the discovery of the concentration camps and all the things that went on, everybody worldwide adopted the Nuremberg Code. Just about every legal entity did, so that we wouldn't have these experiments. And these experiments are found to have been done at University of California, Southern California, and UCLA. Now, it just so happens that Mary Nichols, who is the head of CARB, is a big-time UCLA person. There's a dot to connect there, and we will do so. But this is a major breaking story. It's just, kind of like percolating out there right now. And we're going to get to this a little bit later. But first, the good news. The good news is this. Both of my favorite football teams played in the Super Bowl yesterday, and one of them won. the much maligned Patriots, because they played with inflated balls. No. Yesterday they were fully inflated, from what I understand, because the balls were strictly protected by the officials, and apparently not fondled a lot before the game or during the game, which I think is really kind of important. I used to be a football coach. I coached in high school and college, and I can't tell you all the different stories I have about coaching, but this whole notion of inflated or deflated footballs, it's quite common. It's quite common. But they had to pick on somebody and create a story. And I said last week what I thought this story was the further jihadi movement about American culture, and especially American-style football. If you notice that American-style football in the last 6 years has been under attack, and it is. Excuse me, and this thing with the footballs was nothing any different, in my opinion. It was nothing. But somebody managed to make a story out of it. And what they have found out, that after the game with the Colts, this is the real scandal. They have video from outside the locker room where they show the ball boy pick up the balls in a bag, and he rushes into a bathroom. And 90 seconds later, he emerges with the ball bag, and he goes out to the field. Now, I don't know about you, but I've had the opportunity to pump up and deflate footballs. And I can tell you, it's about a 2-minute process minimum for each ball. And as you know, the contention was that it was 11 footballs out of 12 that were deflated. Now, in my opinion, as a former football coach, if you're throwing a deflated football at the deflation rate that they were talking about, the ball will have a tendency to wobble and not travel right. That's my opinion. And of course, it was wet, it was cold, a lot of environmental factors. I just believe them. I don't think it was anything other than the opportunity to attack Boston, the Patriots. Red, white, and blue. Excellence in American style football. And I think that yesterday I was so happy because I saw American exceptionalism really on display yesterday. Except for the police state business going on. That's something we need to work on. Obama's police state business. Tom.
It's my opinion the ball boy went to the bathroom.
Well, that's debatable, man. Come on. 90 seconds?
He drank beer.
I mean, we're not making this stuff up. So they're going to spend probably $3 or $4 million on attorneys to investigate this. But when you're a multi-billion dollar industry, you can do that. Okay, really, really good news. And on my website now, exclusively on Agenda 21 Radio, I'm going to try and show you this, is we now have officially, I don't know if you can see this, it says, do you see that? Yeah. Can you guys see that at all from that distance? What's it say?
Bye-bye, Obama. Countdown. 717 days, 1 hour, no.
Yeah.
1 hour, 59, 8 minutes, 57, 55.
54, 50. In my spare time, I stare at this. You can find me at any given time when it's downtime, I'm staring. Wow. Countdown, 1 minute, 58. 1 hour, 58, 36, 35. See, it's just
Still too long.
it's still too long. Anyway, it's on our website, and you can see that. And by the way, classic Ronald Reagan videos came out today, or I put them up on my website. One is the what's it called? The message, the one where he talked about the soldier in France. And the message, he actually gave it at his inaugural speech. And if you get to the website, see that one. It's absolutely riveting. I had people emailing me crying from it today when we played it at 12:30 this afternoon. So it's a really good one. Okay, Jeb Bush. Now, I don't know where you stand politically with Jeb Bush, but one thing I do want to say is that, how many of you in here support Common Core? Okay, well that about does it for Jeb Bush. You guys that are out there absolutely advocates against Common Core, keep it up. It's working. It's absolutely, it has swept this nation like I would call a prairie fire, and that's of course Bill Ayers' famous book that he wrote with Bernadine Dorn about communism sweeping over America. So I just like to use his book title, is that Common Core is sweeping America like a wildfire, or a prairie fire, and it's working. Whatever we're doing in putting pressure on everywhere, it's working. Now, the problem that we have coming up is the ESA, it's called the Education Secondary and Elementary Act, which was part of the 1964 Civil Rights Act. Now, here's the problem, is that that's supposed to guarantee everybody a free and appropriate education with no civil rights violations. So that opened up the Office of Civil Rights, which is underneath the Justice Department. So that's the leg the Justice Department has into education from 1964. Well, they have to reauthorize the law every 5 years to see if it's working. Well, they didn't reauthorize the law after No Child Left Behind in 2001. That reauthorization would have taken place in 2006. But instead, they held off the authorization amongst protests from myself when I was a school administrator. Well, why are you holding this off? I kept asking people. Shut up, Paul, don't ask that question. Why? Why are they doing this? This is what Congress is supposed to do. Well, lo and behold, what did we get in its place? We got President Barack Hussein Obama elected, and by February of 2009, he's running around the neighborhood going, oh, here we have this thing called race to the top. They're not, the Congress, they're not doing their job. This is exactly what he said. They're not doing their job by reauthorizing this law. So here's my law. Race to the top. Competitive bid. Competitive grant. But in order to apply for the grant, they switched it around. In order to apply for the grant, what you have to do is you have to give up your state's right to education. 10th Amendment. And so we rushed into that over objections from myself and other people here in California, and Schwarzenegger in 2010 signed the legislation that said, yep, we're up for Race to the Top. We applied for the grant and immediately was turned down. Really. The largest state in the union was turned down, and we lost about, I don't know how many millions of dollars from that grant. It's all a big ruse, so that we would give up our 10th Amendment right to education. And they not only did this in they did this in a rather unfriendly way. The guy, and I've told this story before, and now it might resonate a little bit better with some of you, but the superintendent of the state of Texas, education superintendent, he remembers the story this way. He's sitting at his desk in his office, knock at the door, it's his secretary, she walks in, there's two guys here from the education department, the National Education Department, they want to talk to you. They come in, present to him a packet, and they want him, look around, please sign here. That's just what happened. And he looked at it, and he said, well, I'm not doing this. What you're asking me to do is to give up our state's right, and then you're telling me that we have to do this thing called Common Core. What's that? Well, Common Core is good, you just need to sign it and we'll be on our way. And if you don't sign it, there's going to be federal implications for other grants that you won't get in Texas. He tells this story in a video that's out there. We actually have it on the website somewhere out there. And it talks about, he was actually testifying in Georgia at the time in front of their legislature as to why they should not do Common Core. That's the kind of thuggery that was going on. You see, Common Core and Race to the Top is exactly opposite from anything we've ever done in this state or the other states. As educators, we've always gone out and included our community in the decision-making process. We'd sit down with our parents, with students, professors, teachers, and then maybe 3 years later, we would emerge with new standards and a curriculum. And then a board would vote on it locally, and Shazam, we'd do it. We wouldn't have to worry about the state or the federal government.
Right.
So now what you have is a situation where it's completely the opposite. You have 8 people who put Common Core together, and they've said this, here's Common Core, we are so much smarter than you guys, collectively. Our 8 minds are so much more smarter than yours, and here is the curriculum, and you have to do it or else. That is what we have sunk to. And that's why there's such pushback with Common Core. Does that make sense? Okay, now what they're doing, now that we have Republicans, I guess some Republicans in charge, what they've got is now they're going to go back to the reauthorization of No Child Left Behind in the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, which I think is kind of cool. But Lamar Alexander is heading it up, and he's been sort of into the Common Core mode. And so we started hearing about this, that what they were really going to do is going to be another avenue for Common Core to be stuffed down the throats of everybody. They're just going to make it legal now, is what they're going to do. But there is enormous pushback, and I found this out this morning, coming from 50 states. Oz?
Yeah, why is Kasich in favor of Common Core? Why does he say that the governors all got together on it and that they had panels on it and they developed it?
Well, that's nice, but were you invited?
No, I certainly wasn't,
Were you? Were you?
but I guess Kasich wasn't either.
Well, yeah, we see the problem with these guys is they're not really educated as to how these things are supposed to work. And they think if it's the federal government saying it's okay, they're just going to automatically do it. They acquiesce to it. And Casey's in the same boat. Now, Jeb Bush has a stake in it because he's been a part owner of a large software company that sells Common Core materials. Jeb. What is it who was telling me about Laura Ingraham? Thomas, was it you?
What's that?
What's that segment that Laura Ingram does in her show?
Peeking through the bushes.
So, peeking through the bushes. I'm sorry. We're gonna actually do some real peeking in a second too. Anyway, the whole notion about some of these characters out there, like Kasich, if he wants to run, will understand immediately, like Bush understands today. In the Iowa straw poll, have you heard about this as of yesterday? Iowa straw poll. You've got Scott Walker up at the top, Jeb Bush with like 5% at 7. He's feeling the heat from Common Core. And everybody I've talked to, they said, we're after that guy. So if Kasich wants to wise up, he'll say, I'm going to have to rethink this Common Core business and let it just be turned over to the states and let them do their thing. Why federalize? And that's the whole thing about this tactic. And by the way, I had a conversation this morning with somebody in Washington, D.C., and actually in the Department of Education. And this will show you how deep this is. I said to this person, an experienced former administrator, superintendent, I said, they're supposed to be working on this. I said to the person, because we're having this kind of conversation about state rights and stuff, I said, you know, have you ever gone back and looked at the original law that was written in 1964? The ESEA Act, in that segment? No. Okay, I said, when I get people like this, I just get so sarcastic with them. And, you know, when I'm out on the air, it's kind of late. I said, well, okay, don't you think it would be a really good idea, since you want to change this law for 330 million people, that you go back and read the original law and the intent? Yeah, Paul, we probably should. I said, good. Now let's take to the next step. Now I kick into teacher mode. Let's go to the next step. If you read the law, what you're going to find out, it's very explicit in the law, that the federal government will not make any provisions of curriculum or foist any curriculum upon the states, period, end of subject. That's completely, strictly reserved for the states, which shoots down Common Core. Do you see the level of thuggery that we've got going on? But this is a person who's actually working on it. So I said to her, well, I give a word of sex. I said, I'm not really, liking what I'm seeing here. I said, you go to Lamar Alexander and all these other people in the Senate and you're trying to get this pushed through, but you don't understand the implications. And I said, surely you understand the implications of a local community having control over curriculum. Yes, I do. So that's where we're at. I don't know if it's going to do any good, but it's better than Common Core right now, but we're still got to push. And anything that's related to it relative to the ESEA, and if you know somebody who's dealing with the Common Core issue right now, please get to them. It's working. What we're doing here is working. And it's working hard, and I'll tell you, there's a lot of people, if you talk to anybody who's in the Common Core world, they're avid Common Core people. But they're very, very, feel very strong about it because they do not want the federal government in our stuff any longer. And I think that's admirable. I think I absolutely feel we're gonna win on Common Core. And we're gonna win here on the CSEA business. Now that we've exposed them for who they are. Oh, Jeb Bush. Jeb Bush. There's an article that came out that when he was in high school, let me ask you guys this question. All of you. Now, come on, now be honest with me. How many of you would like to have all your junior high and high school stories vetted publicly about you? Raise your hand. Okay, I see no takers. One. Kuman. Okay, so Jeb Bush has somebody, his name is Tibbetts. And this guy Tibbetts went to high school with Jeb Bush in some, I can't remember, a real high prestigious private school in Massachusetts. And he learned how to smoke marijuana in the woods with Bush. And they like to listen to Steppenwolf. Magic Carpet Ride. So I couldn't resist it today on the show. We played Magic Carpet Ride while I was telling the story. And, but here's the deal, is that this is, you know, when you have your high school buddies coming out on you like this and taking shots and calling you, oh, by the way, they really liked hashish. That was better than the regular marijuana. So, the hashish. So, Jeb, it's not looking good. I wonder if the people in Iowa knew about that before they took the straw poll. I wonder what it's going to look like if they take another one. Okay. How am I doing here, buddy?
Excellent.
All right. I'm going to skip to the really good one. How many have been watching Sons of Liberty? Just a few? Who's not seen it? I think we ought to do, you guys haven't seen it? Oh my gosh, we need to do a special screening here. I mean, really, it is awesome. It is absolutely awesome, and you'll really learn the history. You know, Samuel Adams, what a scumbag, what a jerk. I would have thrown him out of school. Actually not. Samuel Adams, by the way, in this, you know, I used to work with at-risk youth, gangsters and stuff like that, and their parents sometimes, actually a lot of times, I used to work with their parents, and they used to want to work me over. But Samuel Adams really is a kid who would have been a high school dropout, and as a kid who has enormous talent. And this is one of the things I always say about high school dropouts, because I love high school dropouts, especially if you can get them to get back in, and that's the key thing. It's not that I love to see them go, get in trouble and all that. I want to see them back in school and educated with a diploma. But when you are a high school dropout, one of the things that you do most is you lead. High school dropouts are some of the best leaders in the world. And I say that, thinking, oh God, high school dropouts are... I mean this. When they're in school, they make a decision that's a life-changing decision. That school doesn't fit them, and they leave. They don't follow along. If something's not working for them, they're going to leave. Now, do they recognize the error of their ways? Oftentimes, yes. Do they end up in jail or whatever? Oftentimes, yes. But if we can capture these, prevent them, first of all, by creating an education system that works and doesn't turn them off. As an example, you hear me talk about shop classes all the time. Well, ever since we started, 10% of high schools in California have shop classes now. It's been an absolute de-skilling technique by the left to dumb down our kids over the last 30 years. I've seen it firsthand. And it's a de-skilling technique. They just eliminate the classes and the kids don't have the skills, right, to build anything. But the high school dropout rate in California mimics exactly the decline in high school shop classes. So the faster the dropouts would rise, you take a look at that and look conversely and find out the faster the shop classes were being taken out of the high schools. How many of you took shop or home ec? Both. Yeah, I gotta tell you, I would have been one of those Samuel Adams guys. I would have dropped out for sure if it wasn't for a guy by the name of A.P. Letourneau, who was my metal and machine shop teacher. And he literally saved me, A.P. Letourneau. Now, it's kind of interesting, his twin brother, A.P. was my shop teacher, and his twin brother, that's correct.
RG.
Do you know who the LG is?
Yeah.
Who is he?
He designed earth moving equipment and built it.
And what else?
I'm not sure what else, but he was very wealthy, and he tithed 90% of his income and kept 10, living on 10.
That's
That's
correct.
what he's known for.
Yeah, you go and look at any big earth equipment, moving equipment, or any big trucks or anything, and LG invented that.
He developed the electric wheel also.
Right, the electric wheel. He's enormously famous, and there's a picture that I have, and I can't find it, and I'm really struggling to find it, but it's the two of them together side by side, they look like bookends. And, except if you take a look at AP, and you have to know this, you can kind of see his hands, they're the hands of a real working man, grease and gritty and all that stuff, even if he's standing in a suit. But yeah, so I feel very honored to have been in the midst of and been taught by AP and a guy who kept me in high school. So it kept me in high school. And I went on to college, and now here I am right in front of you. But the point is we cannot any longer allow our schools to do this. And if we allow this ESCA thing or the Common Core eliminates shop classes. It dumbs us completely down, and we can't have that. Okay, so Sons of Liberty, excellent. It is, I think it ran last week. And is it going to run this week? It's on the History Channel. But you got to watch it, and I guess we'll probably schedule something. I'm just kind of throwing that out there to do a series on that, because it's just so it brings American history to life in a way I've never seen it. And I know that if we can get this history out to kids, it's very enjoyable for kids. They'll enjoy it too. Okay, Hillary Clinton. Come on. I have good news. Don't start throwing tomatoes. Don't start doing that. Okay, Hillary, or Rodham Clinton, is, well, there's tapes. There's video and audio tapes. Have I intrigued you? How many have heard about what's going on with Hillary? Aha, now the rest of you are about to find out. Okay, Benghazi, right? All right. What we know and what we have brought to you on Agenda 21 Radio with all the people that we've involved and all the stuff, I'll give you a quick rundown of the story, but Chris Street and I really were covering that story almost live at the time it was happening, and within hours we were understanding what was going on. And we were broadcasting, almost moment by moment, the events that it was an attack. Unbeknownst to us that the next day or two, we'd find out that the president was announcing it wasn't an attack. Come on. It was all about a videotape and a demonstration. Well, you know, I take out my cell phone, and on that, we were watching nearly live pictures and video from Al Jazeera come in from the attack. Guys walking around with RPGs, machine guns, and mortars. What a demonstration, huh? Right. And so, to make a long story short, we've been covering it ever since. And I swore, when I heard the president come out and make the comments that he did, we knew that he was trying to bury the story. So I swore then, and those of you that have been listening to the radio show, I mention it, Benghazi all the time. Even to the point where I was having people call me and say, can you stop talking about Benghazi? Change the subject. You're in a groove, you're in a rut. And I said, no, we're not doing that. And so the story has been kept alive, primarily by the news stream media, which is what we are, and all the bloggers out there in the internet and so on. And the reason why it's been stifled, there is a great, did you send it out, Carla? A great email with pictures of the people in the press and the media?
Yes.
Right, okay, you got that one. All the people that are connected to the White House from ABC, NBC, and CBS. David and Ben Rhodes as an example. Ben Rhodes, he's the guy who did the talking points, so that Susan Rice would go out on the Sunday shows and talk about, it was about the video, it was not an attack. Ben Rhodes wrote those. Well, Ben called his brother David and said, look, can you help us out? Can you help a brother out? And he says, can you not run a story that you were going to run with Obama making the announcement on Sunday that it was going to be about the attack? He was going to make that announcement on 60 Minutes, so they held the story until November 5th. Now here's the deal. Is this a request? Oh, sorry. Okay, got it. You're welcome. Okay, anyway, so they held the story. Steve Croft interviews Obama on the 12th, right after the Rose Garden ceremony. Here's the deal. He admits that it was an attack. Now, I forgot to mention, David Rhodes is president of CBS. Do you think there may have been some communication going on? Yes, of course. There absolutely was. Well, now, we have been, Chris and myself and others that are around us, we have been made very aware from our sources about certain things that are available now that are starting to creep out of the media, one of them being some videotapes and audio tapes of people that were confronting the president, confronting Hillary Clinton. They come from the Pentagon, of all places, and from Dennis Kucinich's office, because they were raising the red flag before the September 11th incident in 2012, and saying, we don't want Hillary Clinton to take us to war. And we really don't like the idea that the Muslim Brotherhood and Hillary are teamed up. And if the Muslim Brotherhood is getting money from funding here in the United States to buy weapons which are being sent to Qatar, and we are actually sending those weapons by way of Hillary Clinton to Libya to be used by Al-Qaeda. Those weapons, including somewhere we've got the better fact, 70,000 handheld missile launchers that'll shoot down airplanes, were then shipped to Syria under the guise to be used by the Syrian Free Army. But in fact, they were meant for Al-Qaeda, which became ISIS. So we're starting to see some smoking guns come out for Hillary. Now, this came out, and I brought this up on my radio show last week. I said there's something really strange going on with Hillary. She hasn't been speaking at any campaign speeches lately. So Thursday, when this started to creep out, she quickly announced that she's going to make her decision about running for president sometime in July. And of course now she's agreed in the midst of all this, which something went on, I haven't figured out. But in the midst of this, she agreed wholeheartedly to go before Trey Gowdy and his House Select Committee on Benghazi. So she's committed, and she's going to have to go. Now, how many of you would love to be questioned by Trey Gowdy? Raise your hand. No, listen, that would not be a good thing for me. But anyway, you know, this is the kind of stuff that's going on right now, and it's almost comedy as far as I'm concerned, because there's more things to come out. Way more things to come out, especially about it's the Joint Chiefs of Staff that were opposing Hillary Clinton and her surge to war. And by the way, Gaddafi was ready to surrender. Kucinich and his group were working behind the scenes to get Gaddafi to surrender. And he was willing to surrender and not have a war. But instead, war was chosen, being pushed by Hillary Clinton. And by the way, I want to remind everybody, do we know who her chief of staff is? Umar Abedin, whose father was president of the Muslim Brotherhood. And her mother is still president of the Muslim Sisterhood out of Egypt. Did I connect some dots? You see how this is all going? So ultimately, this is all going to come out. It's coming out now. And I'm really kind of happy because even Fox News is talking about some of this stuff, finally. But nobody else is, I mean, in the mainstream. But they're going to be forced to do this because they're all looking like a bunch of schmucks as far as I'm concerned. And the rest of the world sees them that way too. And by the way, the Charlie, is it Hebdo or Headdo? Headbo? Headbo?
Hebdo, I think.
Hebdo? See, nobody knows. But the terrorist attack, and I make this comment all the time, and I don't know if I said it before, but the President of the United States has unequivocally given up his position as leader of the free world since that attack, because it was really clear his sympathies are with the terrorists there. And the Europeans understand it. I've talked to some friends in Europe, and they totally get it. They totally think that the president is a terrorist, and they point a lot to the Citizens Commission on Benghazi, which identifies him. But by the way, Major General Paul Vallely was on that commission, as was Claire Lopez, who was at the Liberty Tour. They sat on that commission and declared that we switched sides in the war on terror with Benghazi. And that was Hillary Rodham Clinton. So these kind of dots are starting to connect themselves. And I think that over time, before July, there's probably going to be a decision made, probably with, are we ready yet?
It is
He'll be right back.
Okay.
2-minute warning.
All right, good. But since you mentioned impeachment, the other thing that I didn't get to on today's show, but I did talk about Friday. Remember the IRS scandal? Okay. One of the things that got Richard Nixon in trouble was Richard Nixon was being accused of using the IRS to, destroy his political foes, which really wasn't happening. And there was no evidence of that, but he was going to be impeached on that, and that was one of the items in the articles of impeachment, which caused him to resign. Then the federal government, saying we got to make sure that there's assurances in the law, they passed a law that would keep the president from the IRS and working together. 6103, I think, is the code section. Those of you who are attorneys can check me on that. But this code section prohibits the communication between the White House and the IRS, basically. Now, the problem with the IRS and the White House, this current administration, the other White Houses, George Bush Jr. had 2 contacts in 8 years. Clinton only had 1. Bush 1, and then Reagan 2. Now, this guy, 167. Okay, so what happened Thursday? I love this. Now remember, the Republicans have the Senate. And really a lot of kudos to, what's his name? The Senate guy. McConnell. I know, listen, I know, I'm saying kudos, but I said what Mitch McConnell should do, if in fact we won the election, this is before the election, is put the Senate back in order and make it a deliberative body again. You realize that no amendments were passed to any bills all the time that Harry Reid had control? It stopped. The deliberative process of the greatest deliberative body in the world stopped. So McConnell has reintroduced stuff, like basic procedural stuff. And that's a good thing. Now, what he's got going on is a nice little Senate committee. And guess what they want to look at? They have subpoenaed all the emails and communiques from the White House, between the White House and the IRS to the White House. Oh. That's called really impeachable stuff. Now, according to our good friend Chris Street, who knows these things, and by the way, kudos to him because I can't remember the acting Treasury Secretary at the time, I can't remember his name right now, but Chris actually found a blue pen letter written by him. You remember, he's in Orange County, he used to be the Orange County Treasurer, so he knows all these people.
Steve Miller.
Steve Miller, that's it. And he called me at like 3 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday morning. Paul. What? I found it. Yeah, I got it. You wouldn't believe this. And he's like, really? It's like a little kid. And I said, Chris, it's 3 o'clock in the morning. What's up? I just went to bed at 2:30. What's up? He says, I found this letter from Miller. And I had no idea what he was talking. So then he started telling me, and so I sat right up in bed. I said, oh, let's go to the computer. And sure enough, he had the actual letter, a blue pen letter from Miller that was talking about the IRS and the implications of the IRS doing the audits on the Tea Party. That was Sunday. We ran an article on our website. We ran an article Monday night. By Tuesday morning, Mr. Miller resigned. Because, see, Mr. Miller knows he'll go to jail in all this, but he resigned instead because he had the smoking gun. So this is the power, this is where people really think there's really impeachable territory for sure, that's really solid. There's all the connections that's going on there and all the chicanery, if you will, between the White House and the IRS. Okay, how am I doing over there?
We're ready.
Are you sure?
Yes, sir.
I could just keep on going for another 2.5 hours. That's a tough act to follow. But I'll follow it. Any questions, first of all, before I get started on anything you might have about any other activities out there that we could talk about? Stephanie?
Oh, yeah, I just got a text from a concerned person saying they just busted some ISIS terrorists, ISIS training ground busted up at Nevada County State Park. And they know that I've got some secret weapon. The secret weapon, can you comment on it?
Nevada County?
Yes. Using the state park.
As an ISIS terrorist, that's not far from here.
Exactly.
I can't comment about that.
So you're aware of it?
I cannot comment about that.
Did you sleep
But-
off?
No. There'll be tape on my mouth tonight.
Can you tell us about those terrorists?
Should I be afraid? Should I have a double, should I have hollow points, or should?
Load up.
Well, you know, we have been talking about this on the radio show for quite some time, since really July, when we were given information from my super secret people. And they were so concerned, and they just came out with the information. This was back in July, and you may recall that I said that there would be terrorist activities based upon the information that I had. We wrote up a big story about it and specifically listed 100 shopping malls that had already been predetermined to be targeted. And these shopping malls, one of them actually had video footage, facial recognition of one of the 5 terrorists that was released by Obama staking out the mall. That was in Austin, Texas. There's two places I can discuss. I've been kind of told not to discuss other places, but there's actually a total now of 103 of the shopping malls that are supposedly targeted by ISIS throughout the United States. And one of them is located in the Van Nuys, California area, and the other one is in Austin, Texas. Those two I can talk about because they've got facial recognition on the one ISIS, or the one terrorist that was released by the president in the release of Bergdahl. Pardon me? I just know it was the Van Nuys area, Van Nuys, California.
Listen to radio, so I knew about the 103 malls and one of those skid movies. But about right here, there's a lot of people freaking all of a sudden they see it in print, and they haven't met it yet, and obviously they haven't figured out Agenda 21 is not about.
Yeah, we clearly. Let me put it to you this way: when you have the government in some places coming to me and asking me for information, so that's what's happening. So we feel pretty confident in the information that we're divulging out publicly, and it is risky. We understand that, but we feel that everybody needs to be forewarned about some of these things. The attack scenario, by the way, as it was described and laid out. What they're attempting to do, the border being wide open is one access point for ISIS and everybody else. Nobody's identifying these people. I have several border patrol agents that openly talk to me under the auspices I can't use their name, and this has been going on for some time. Other than Mexicans, as they're sometimes referred to as terrorists, and they're deeply embedded in our society. And the attack scenario that they described to us is very similar to like what you saw with the Charlie Hebdo attack. And if you saw that attack and if you watched it unfold, it was clearly a military operation and designed to cause terror and intimidate and so on. And that's exactly what it did. But that was one of the ways in which they would attack us. And we talked about that in early July. The other way was the beheading issue, where they were going to snatch people off the street, videotape beheadings, and put it out on YouTube. So and that was going on in Australia, remember? And the Australians busted them before anything happened. And then the individual one-off terrorist attacks, like they had at the cafe there in Sydney, I think it was Sydney, Australia. They actually had 3 or 4 of those around the world that they executed and pulled off. So the big banana is the United States, and they're trying to, it's a timing issue, as I understand, and what is going to work best for them timing-wise, and how they're going to humiliate and insult the United States of America on a large-scale attack. And they think that by doing these 103 malls, coming in with squads of 8 suicide bombers into each mall, and detonating the explosives that will kill mass casualties in malls. And then all same time, same day, same time, same month. And then they'll come in with killing squads, all dressed in black, similar to what these guys did with cars. And so that's kind of the layout. So they're practicing. They practiced the mall attack in was it Kenya, Nairobi, last year. That was a training for what they were trying to do in America. It was a training exercise. That's as it was described to me. So that's what they're planning on doing. Now, we've been able to successfully, there was a date, and it was going to be, I think it was October 23rd, if I remember correct. It was a very important Muslim date, Islamic date, and that was going to be the go date in America. But some good guys, not affiliated with our government, took out 6 of their people, including, John, the guy who was the beheader, and they found him beheaded. They found him beheaded in Mosul with cigarettes stuffed in his mouth. Just thought I'd throw that one at you. So there are good guys out there. This is the kind of sinister side of stuff. I'm not making this up. You know, people who talk to me are 100% right on everything. So.
The good guys, were those Islamists?
I have no comment about that.
Pardon?
The good guys, as I understand, are related to the West.
God is
Special forces.
All I can say is the West. And I can't. But let's say, I'll tell you one thing. The Obama administration does not approve of them.
Why would they?
That's just a fact. They do not approve of them. It was certainly an op that was not approved by the Obama administration.
Paul, do you think this is gonna be something close to like the next presidential election, so people are afraid
Wait,
to
that's right.
maybe switch?
I forgot the name for it.
You know,
It doesn't happen, sorry.
they're on their timetable.
A mental hiccup.
Now, some of the things that have been going on, which I find interesting, yeah, Mike?
Excuse me, what was her question?
Will this event be closer to the presidential election? And it's on their timetable. And we managed to disrupt their timetable enormously in a lot of different ways. The 6 things that took place would be one of them. But getting the word and information out like we're doing right now, that's just destroying them. I mean, it's really, because they don't know how to juggle all these things together. Now, the case in point is sadly the beheading of the 2 Japanese. And this, I don't know if you picked up on the news on all this stuff. I don't know how much, I haven't covered it in the last day or so. I'm actually waiting to talk to someone. But there's really, apparently, what they're gathering is a real communication disruption with ISIS command and control. And they depend very heavily upon social networking, right? Twitter, Facebook, and that sort of thing, which I don't know why we haven't worked to really shut that stuff down. But they, on the internet and all that stuff. And so what has happened recently with this situation with the Japanese that were just unfortunately beheaded is that they were trying to not behead these Japanese, and there was some communication from other outside ISIS forces, and these ISIS forces said, well, behead them. So they beheaded them, and the real command structure did not want them beheaded because they were already in negotiations for money for them. So there's a state of confusion, thank you, working in the ranks of ISIS right now. Now, ISIS is a product of the Obama administration. That's where we're at. And that's why we were so on to the Benghazi thing, because we saw this happening. The proof is the commission's report. And if you went to the Liberty Tour, do you think we ought to invite him to the Liberty Tour?
Yeah.
Okay, I just thought I'd ask. Mr. Spivak, he's going to be a happy camper about that. But what was I talking about? Threw myself out there. Oh, ISIS. I still lost my train of thought. It's getting old.
Beheading in Japan.
Okay, they beheaded the guys in Japan. The command and control structure is really a Twitter right now, and it's really floating around. They're not sure. My people that I talked to late this afternoon just aren't sure, and they had no comment for me about what's going on. They know there's something wrong with them on their end. So whether they're combating one another, turning on one another, we don't really know. But if we buy more time and we get further out, we get stronger. And cells can be isolated, like what's happening up here in Nevada County. Because there are training centers around the United States, and this is something that's been known. The training centers, and that's actually it's really funny. We've known about these training centers for years.
They got a map on the internet, you can see a map.
It's been there for years, and now all of a sudden it's news. Because of what happened in Paris, it's news. And there are some centers around here. And I think that's probably what we had to go down and, without saying anything else, but that's probably what happened. But these things, you can look at them on the internet, and they're real. And people are trying to protect their First Amendment rights as they try and talk about beheading and killing Americans. What, Kuhn?
It was interesting on talk radio tonight. The Japanese are very upset prime minister, for lack of a better word, put out a death warrant on ISIS.
Yeah.
Right. And I reported that today. You must have been listening to Agenda 21 radio at some point today, subconscious, because we do the show at 12 to 3 live on 1560 AM. You can hear it here.
I was up in Orland, so maybe I.
Maybe, oh yeah, you must have heard it there. Just a second, I'll get to you. Anyway, yeah, the Japanese, as of today officially, I think, are turning the page of history and saying they're no longer passive, which was mandated in the Constitution by MacArthur after World War II. So they're not, and I say to ISIS, good luck. Good luck. Yeah.
How serious do you think the King of Jordan is when he told them that they executed the same, he's going to execute all the ISIS prisoners they have in there?
100%.
Cool.
Actually, 110%. Now, here's my solution. Listen, this is what I say on the radio. I didn't say it actually too much today. But with the King of Jordan business now, I have the solution for Gitmo. Send all the detainees to Jordan. Problem is solved, right? Let him deal with it. Anyway, Thomas?
Didn't the Japanese use that same form of execution on a lot of American soldiers in World War II?
Yeah, and it did stir emotions and so on here in the United States of America. There's no question about it. And for the life of me, but actually not for the life of me, I understand what they're doing. They're dumbing us down from, and you can see this. By the way, I don't know if I have this up, but if you go to the investigative project on terrorism, which is Steve Emerson's website, and also the Clarion Project and a few others out there, or go to Atlas Shrugged. Go to Atlas Shrugged with Pamela Geller. You can actually see YouTube videos of the imams in various parts of the world talking about the project and talking about how America will accept Sharia law. And basically, the formula is the boiling frog process. And part of that boiling frog process is what we're sensing right now, which is the desensitization to beheadings, killings, and things like that, because that's all within Sharia. Does that make sense? And he talked about it. These people talk openly that Americans ultimately will submit. Well, I know a lot of Americans, and we're not going to submit. I mean, that's just not going to happen. But the president, by his bowing is a signal of submission, obviously, and we just don't submit. I mean, did we do that to King George? No. Even Olympians know that when they walk by during the opening ceremonies and they're carrying the flag, they will never dip the flag to royalty. And they raise the flag higher. I was at the Olympics in '92 and saw that little process take place. It's pretty amazing. Yeah.
Us as average people, what can we do rather than just be worried and concerned and scared?
No hand wringing, please. No hand wringing, no fear.
What can we do to actually be of help?
Well, let me kind of put something in perspective for you. When you're here, you're learning, get the information out, talk about it, and let people think you're just a wacko, tinfoil hat person. Now tomorrow, if you watch the Ustream of my radio show, I think I'll put on my tinfoil hat. And wait till you see it. Wait till you see it. I got to be reminded of that. But the more we talk about this, the more they hate it. Because it's the truth. And on our side, we have the truth. And the enemy hates that. And that's why tea parties are so important right now. Is you get this information and get it out there. And like I said, when I first started Agenda 21 Radio and Rosa Corey made me take the oath, it says, all right, now that I've taught you all this stuff, Paul, or at least brought it to your attention, you have an obligation to go out and spread that word about what's going on with the totalitarians. That's why I started the radio show. So that's just me doing that. But you have an obligation to get out there, and everybody you can talk to them about it, engage with it. And this whole thing about Islamic terrorism, guess what? It is Islamic terrorism. The president is lying to you. Now, a little thing I know that Lauren was talking about, I think it's called sociopathic lying. And I would say that the president certainly is a sociopath.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he's like the Lauren, what's the name of your first book?
The New Democrats.
That's Obama inside is the cat?
Yes, Obama's the cat and
Doesn't know what he's doing.
Glenn Beck is but he's utterly.
What's Glenn Beck?
He's the fish.
Oh.
The fish will warn you about the cat. But he's utterly convinced that he does.
Right,
See, that's the personality.
right. That's classic sociopath. That's what that is. And that's what he is. You can keep your doctor, can't you?
No.
I mean, everything he says, and I say this on the show all the time, believe opposite of what he's saying and you got the truth.
Yep.
Because sociopaths believe they're telling you the truth. Hello? Right? It's the cat and the hat thing, I guess. But that's what that's the biggest weapon we have right now. Write emails, write letters, talk to people, and look deeper into, don't listen to the general mainstream media because they're not telling you anything. Look deeper at different sources. I try and keep my stuff up to date as much as possible, but if in doubt, on my website, if you go there, it's not that we're getting lazy, just, more things going on. But go to up in the menu bar, it's got the links icon. Click on that, and just about 150 websites come up, and start looking at them individually, because that's where the real truth's coming out. Now, you will not find ABC News there. No, because they're lying to you.
Can I ask you another question?
Sure.
We're spreading the word, terrorists. Are there things that we should, is it better to send emails? Certainly in person letters to people than to be on the cell phone? Are those, as we're just the little people,
They can't stop us little people in numbers. They can't. And they're really in a lot of ways on their heels right now. That's why we're pushing the agenda. You see a lot of people that are much more aligned with one another than you ever thought before. Have I said the Pope yet? What are we seeing there? The Pope is aligned with the President on everything. Have you noticed that? And that's all part of this process, the one world order stuff. And some of them know what they're doing, some of them don't know what they're doing. But at some point in time, this whole house of cards is going to come down. Which brings me to this one, which, by the way, if we can get out of here at 9 o'clock, you can hear the third hour of my radio show, and it has to deal with this. And it's an epic interview. I mean, I think it's one of the best informative interviews I've ever done around the house. And one of the things is all about this whole illegal experiments on children and the implication. And I'll tell you right now, there's going to be major legal problems for some major universities probably in the next 6 weeks. And I'll mention two of them, USC and UCLA. Because they were involved in experiments on children that were clearly against the law. I mean, not even close. They violated the Nuremberg Code. And that is a fact. And as of on Friday and Saturday, there were hearings, actual sworn testimony by people, in which Fred Kelly Grant, as an attorney, remember he's a former federal prosecutor, took sworn statements from people who attest to this, who attest to these experiments, as it relates to the California Air Resources Board. We're getting down to nut time here. Now, I'll give you another little thing. We did a radio show a week ago today on Agenda 21 Radio. And quite frankly, we excoriated and outed the California Air Resources Board and Mary Nichols. Well, we just outed her. Now, nobody does that in the state of California without a permit, I guess, a CARB permit, because CARB is so important to the one world order people They are looking at the California Air Resources Board to be the World Air Resources Board located in Sacramento. That's the objective. We started outing a lot of that. We were talking about Mary Nichols. We put our show up on YouTube. A day later, YouTube took it down. We were censored. Now I said, why would they censor my YouTube? Well, they said it was inappropriate content. But, well, really, the only content was Mary Nichols and Carr. So I did some research. And of course, Mary Nichols Carr, Mary Nichols in particular, she's very close to UCLA. Mary Nichols is also close to Google. Google owns YouTube.
How close is she to Big Sis?
Oh yeah, to Nepal, right? There's some connectedness going on there with the UC system. Remember, we interviewed Dr. Daryl Hamamoto, UC Davis, who's really out there risking his life every single day, and he knows it, because he's exposing what is going on with Carr, Janet Napolitano, and others within the UC system. So there's people out there fighting this battle. So I was able today to get an attorney to sue Google for First Amendment violations. I just think that it's time we bump it up, and get this information out there. And I mean, listen, I know I'm at risk. You think it's going to stop me? It shouldn't stop you. If we don't do something, they will be here for us.
Yep.
They mean business. These people mean business, and so do I.
They're willing to sacrifice themselves and their kids just so that they can sacrifice us.
Well, somebody had a question. Yes, ma'am.
I noticed the Territorial Dispatch headline was the North American Union, and I didn't look at that thing about that.
The North American Union?
Yeah, all about how we want to take in Mexico, United States, and Canada.
Right. This is the one world order business, and I haven't read it from the Territorial Dispatch. I'm sure it's not a complimentary thing. Did you read it? Did it seem like this is what we want to do or not? No, it's not. This is strictly an Agenda 21 thing right here. And we don't want to do that. And that's something that they're trying. This is what's happening to our borders down south, is they're disintegrating the borders, and they hope to do the same thing up in Canada. Be a borderless country. And that's why everybody's flooding in the United States right now on the southern border. It's just open borders. So that's part of that plan there. And by the way, now I may be wrong on this, but it was Fred Kelly Grant. There was a transportation corridor that was planned by the Bushes to come out of Mexico. A port has already been a port for, I think it's on eastern Mexico near Texas. And this port was going to be the major port for that hub, the transnational highway that was going to go through Mexico, Texas, and Canada. Okay, that's no more. That's no more. And it's no more because of Fred Kelly Grant. That was stopped. So that would have been just disaster to our country. See, they're just fleecing our country. That's what they're doing, and that's okay with them, right? Because this is what socialism and National Socialism, communism does. We take your wealth and you like it, and if you don't, we kill you. Simple. Thomas?
The Fred Kelly Grant and the Carr thing is, he's got a website, Stand and Fight?
It's called, listen to this. I heard this and I thought, I heard the story about him. I never met him or anything. I still haven't met him, but boy, do we have conversations. You'd like to really be a fly on the line, and I'm sure that we have flies on the line listening, but we don't really care much. The name of this website, and I thought when I was first told this, I went, what? I'm going to be talking to it's called, listen to this, the Stand and Fight Club Inc.com. Stand and Fight Club Inc. Inc.com. And he means to stand and fight, because we cannot lose. Now, he has been instrumental in stopping the Bureau of Land Management in Idaho and Utah. And in fact, he's the guy who stopped the eminent domain laws from going into effect in Utah here just recently. You see, that's why Mary Nichols does not like him. And oh, by the way, FOIA requests and things see, now at the attorney phase, and they're doing hearings, and they had a hearing board all set up here in the last couple of days up in Reading, and those hearings are going to go before the courts. And they're not going to like that. Also, these hearing results and testimony are going to be given to Senate and House subcommittees on the environment so that they know exactly what's going on down here in California with the California Air Resources Board. See, CARB is set up to be national. And this is what the federal government has said, that you don't have to follow our EPA rules to other 49 states. We're fine if you follow California and you make your laws consistent with California, you're good for the EPA. See how that works? That's already been done. That's already in the works. And that's why they're putting such a pressure on CARB to be associated, to be solving their problems now and kind of get on the road with it. Now, one thing I brought up today, it's on the show. I don't think, I kind of pressed him on the issue at the end of the show about ticketing for CARB. And they're no longer ticketing for CARB because there's no connection to the Highway Patrol. Now, we at Agenda 21 Radio and Katie Grimes, we stopped that because we made some phone calls and questioned, can you tell us, we're in the penal code section or the vehicle code section, it says that CARB can tell the Highway Patrol to ticket. We'll get back to you, Paul, and they've never gotten back, and the tickets have ceased. We just have to confront them on a few things, and all of a sudden, the house of cards starts to come down. And that's what's going to happen here. That's what they're afraid of. And this report, by the way, Katie Grimes will be with me on the show tomorrow at 1 o'clock. This was a report that was done by Katie Grimes. It is scathing. This is so Hitlerian, it's not even funny. And when we start talking about UCLA and USC, University of Illinois, South Carolina, and other places that were using $8 million a pop to conduct these kind of experiments on children, how do you think that's going to play with people?
They get their kids from foster care.
Well, I have seen this firsthand in education, of course, as an administrator, that those kids in foster care always seem to be the experimental models. In fact, tonight, in about 15 minutes, you can hear Fred Kelly Grant talk about that. Because they were paying kids and parents $20 per experiment for the use of the kids, for diesel fuels, exhaust, and so on, which is totally against the Nuremberg Code. And now Fred Kelly Grant is going to develop more, he's got a couple more hearings to go through in Vacaville, and he's going to turn over the evidence that he has to prosecutors in LA County and to Kamala Harris, Obama in address, and also to Eric Holder. And they know it's not going to go anywhere, but he's also turning over that evidence to the Senate and to the House. See, he's connected. This guy's a former federal prosecutor. Now I'm getting the big hand signal over here because it is time almost for the radio show. It's actually, the show's odd, but anyway, if you turn in 14:10 a.m. when you leave here, you can hear the interview I did today of Fred Kelly Grant, and it's very interesting. One more question? No? Okay, thank you very much.